Good morning. My name is Chibombwe Livan. I'm a member of parliament for Bahati constituents, which is in Mansa district. And I would like to welcome this powerful team from CSPR.
You are done, okay. All right, thank you. You can now introduce yourselves.
Good morning. My name is Walusiku Luputa. I'm a program coordinator at the Civil Society for Poverty Reduction. Thank you.
Good morning, Honorables. My name is Tumaini Hauli. I'm the Social Accountability Expert at CSPR.
Good morning. My name is Jane Zulu, Programs Coordinator at Civil Society for Poverty Reduction.
Good morning. My name is Chanda Banda, Project Officer at Civil Society for Poverty Reduction.
Good morning. You can switch off your mic.
My name is Maduve Pasi Siauya. I'm the Communications Expert at Civil Society for Poverty Reduction.
All right, thank you. Our staff, you can introduce yourselves.
Good morning. My name is Mutambo Simon from the Parliamentary Budget Office. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Cletus Musamvu from the Parliamentary Budget Office. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, witnesses. My name is Aifoma Mulewa from the Research Department.
Good morning. I'm Mwele Meja from the Office of the Clerk.
Thank you very much. Before you start presenting, let me confer immunity on you. As you appear before this committee, or indeed any other committee of Parliament, to assist in the deliberations before it, you are protected under Cap 12 of the laws of Zambia, which grants members of Parliament immunity against the prosecution for what they say while in the House. This means that the information you give to this committee cannot be used against you outside Parliament or indeed in any court of law for as long as it is factual. However, should you deliberately or willfully mislead or misinform the committee, the same law can be used against you in the courts of law. I have no doubt in my mind, however, that this won't be necessary, as you won't choose to willfully mislead or misinform the committee. You may now proceed to make your submission. I thank you.
Honorable Chair of the Committee, honorable members of the committee, we thank you so much for this opportunity that you have given us to stand before you or sit before you to present our submission. So we are from the Civil Society for Poverty Reduction. So for those who have not interacted with the Civil Society for Poverty Reduction before, we are basically an anti-poverty network organization that has about over 100 members. So the Civil Society for Poverty Reduction, just from its name, is an organization that is looking to poverty reduction and to uplifting the voices of citizens in the issues of poverty. So we have been working in the budget tracking as well as national development plans implementation and surveys for those plans, as well as inputs from stakeholders and monitoring of those plans. So basically we were formed in the 2000s, as well as, well, I think I've already mentioned most of it. So basically we're here to give a submission on the Minister of Finance's speech, which was announced on Friday 29th, under the theme which is Unlocking Economic Potential. So the theme highlighted efforts and policies aimed at maximizing the country's economic growth and prosperity. In the minister's speech, he highlighted the promotion of economic growth through enhanced private sector investment, increased production and productivity, as well as improved public service delivery. Additionally, the government committed to providing the policy framework, resources and incentives to unlock economic potential of the country through the national budget for 2024. So basically, as CSPR, we are looking at the poverty overview. What is poverty and what is the context in our country? We have noticed from the recent survey for the 2022 poverty assessment conducted by ZAMSTATS that there's actually been an increase from poverty from 54% 54.4% in 2015 to 60% in 2022. So this is different from the rural areas where the poverty rates are at 76.6 in 2015 and are now at 78.8 in 2022. Therefore, it's shown that the poverty levels have actually risen, and this is a very clear indication. And so this is also a challenge to government because poverty levels are really high in the country. So these poverty levels are further exacerbated by impacts of climate change, which pose a threat to agriculture, manufacturing, infrastructure, as well as public health systems. We note that the budget speech by the Minister of Finance and National Planning was broadly outlined on the interventions that government intends to boost economic growth as well as reduce poverty. However, we did notice a number of challenges that had come forth concerning the gross domestic product. And this includes a recession in the economic growth as compared to 2022. We found that there slowed economic growth in comparison to 2022 and 2021 in this year, 2023. So this is mainly attributed, and from government's perspective, to issues of climate change and other issues that are contributing to slowed down of GDP. So when you look at climate change, we're looking at this climate variability that we are seeing will cause a negative growth of 0.4% to the GDP every year if nothing is done about it. So given the impact, and I think this has been mentioned multiple times, even the mine sector have come out and said that we had slowed down operations as a result of climate change, as well as the floods that had hit the country during the last farming season. So there's therefore need for us to ensure and look at the effectiveness of policies and programs and whether they are meeting the people's needs. So just in reference to what we are doing here at CSPR, we're looking at health and community development. However, we felt that this was really restrictive because at CSPR we believe that poverty is multidimensional, and of course there's so many areas that it affects, including issues of environmental protection, education, and so many other areas. So just looking at the resource envelope that we had in 2023 and that of 2024, we believe that yes, there has been an increase in the national budget. However, for this particular session, we're looking at the two sectors which are key to contributing to improving health, alleviating poverty, and improving the standards of living for the most vulnerable in society. So looking at these sectors, and after we have already highlighted the poverty assessment that has come out, this is also coming after the debt restructuring that has recently come on board, as well as the IMF Extended Credit Facility Agreement. So from there, I would like to hand over to my colleagues for the presentations as follows.
Thank you so much. I will just proceed to the sector analysis. I think Kwalisiko has already spoken to the increase in budget allocation for the proposed 2024 budget. So I'll go straight into the health sector. That's just to touch base. I'm sure my colleague will expand further when discussing health when that section comes. So particularly, Zambia is a signatory to multiple treaties and protocols, and we have signed the Abuja Declaration, which also sets our allocation at 15%, and we've seen an increase. Of course, we are not meeting that target yet, but we can see that government has been moving towards that. Like I mentioned, my colleague will further speak to it. I will now delve deeper into social protection, which of course is a program that's essential, especially for poverty reduction. And when we're speaking about people alleviating poverty from vulnerable households in the country, given the poverty statistics that my colleague has spoken to. So social protection is aimed to achieve through improved coordination. We also know that social protection has been facing many challenges, such as inadequate funding, inadequate program coordination, and various other reasons, including fragmentation. The demand for increased resource allocation to social protection is driven also by a number of factors, poverty being at the helm of it, and the most important reason highlights that the important contribution that social protection has to poverty reduction. We also note that in the 8th NDP, social protection is also one of the ways that government has identified as one of the ways to alleviate, one of the tools to alleviate poverty. So my next page, we can see how the trends in social protection have been going. I'm sure this information is not new to you. Social protection has grown significantly, over double from 2021. But of course, it still remains a small piece of the cake when you're looking at budget share, because currently in the proposed budgets, we are at 5.4 budget share, which is still not sufficient if we are looking to poverty reduction. In terms of social cash transfer, which remains a flagship social protection program in Zambia, it's receiving over half the percentage share of social protection, and of course we can see some wins there. But the allocation towards social cash transfer has increased from 3.7 billion in 2023 to 4.1 billion, and we're grateful for this because it also injects directly and alleviates poverty directly to people. With this increase, the government commits to advance the number of beneficiaries from 1.1 by end of June to it's increased from 0.1 billion to 1.1 by the end of 2023. CSPR commends this, and we see that government has committed a 9.7 increments to social cash transfer. However, we also note that the increment has not changed in transfer value. We can see that, yes, previously we can see a trend of an increase transfer value, but when we're looking at the cost of living and the high poverty trends, we can also see that the transfer value is key, especially with the Zamstat statistics that show that the food poverty line should end at 336, and we're only giving our beneficiaries 200 kwacha. So there's a disparity there. So we're increasing in coverage, but not increasing in transfer value. For Food Security Pact, of course, this was a response to the climate shocks that came, and which climate change, like Walusiko had mentioned, is part of the dynamic position of changing or alleviating poverty. So of course, government has put in measures like the Food Security Pact to ensure that people have access to agro inputs, and they'll be able to grow their productivity or grow their produce. The objective of this program is to empower the poor and the vulnerable, and we can see that it's been doing that over the years. In the 2024 national budget, shown an increase of 1,000 beneficiaries from 2022, which stood at 241,000 in that year. We can also see that the proposed budget has noted an increase of 1.3 billion, which translates into a 0.1 increase in budget allocation. For the public service pension funds, the government has also increased allocation here, which gives a good indication that beneficiaries or pensioners will be able to receive their monies on time, and this has been a challenge over the years, that beneficiaries will go for years and just fighting for the monies that are rightfully there. So we commend government that they've increased and committed to ensuring that all pensioners receive their funds in good time. We would also like to note, away from this submission, that social protection is also a multidimensional system, and these programs should be able to speak to one another for poverty to reduce. So for example, social cash transfer should be able to speak to Food Security Pact and all these others, to just create a line or create a system in which social protection would be then able to positively reduce poverty in Zambia. I'll hand over to my colleague. Thank you so much, Honorables, for listening to me. I'll hand over to my colleague to just speak to the health sector.
Okay. Okay, so I will dive into the health sector. So like my colleagues mentioned, we have seen a 1.4 increase budgetary allocation to the health sector from 10.4% in 2022 or 2023 to 11.8% in 2023. As a country, we have signed the Abuja Declaration, which requires that 15% of our national budget should go to the health sector. So in that, as CSPR, we feel as government should have done more. They should have allocated, looking at the increase in the percentage, especially the fact that our inflation rate is also going high. So the 1.4% increase is not really significant. Looking at also the challenges that are being faced in the health sector, such as shortages of health personnel, but also poor infrastructure. So in terms of health infrastructure, there has been a decline of funds allocated to this segment after the 2021 after the year 2021, which in the last 5 years got the highest funds. So this, we are assuming it could have been attributed to COVID-19, which has dropped, and the need for COVID centers having been reduced. However, in the 2024 budget, we have seen an increment of funds allocated to the infrastructure sector, which the infrastructure of health centers and hospitals, which is commendable. We did note that there has been pronouncements in the Minister of Finance budget speech to create or to set up cancer treatment centers in Livingstone and Copperbelt. CSPR, we commend this because it will kind of decongest the cancer center in Lusaka. We have also seen infrastructure of building infrastructure for maternal and neonatal health facilities, which we feel is a good move as it will kind of reduce the high rates of maternal death that we currently have as a country or experiencing. So we did also note an allocation to the drugs and medical supplies over the years has gradually increased from 900 million in 2020 to 4 billion in 2024. This is a good move, and as CSPR we feel that looking at the increased budgetary allocation to kind of address the shortage of medical supplies and drugs, we feel there is need for value for money to be considered as we do the procurement of these medicines and medical supplies. Further, the minister in his speech highlighted that government in 2024 will recruit 4,000 health personnel. In 2023, in his budget speech, he did allude that 3,000 health personnel would be recruited. As CSPR were concerned, we are in the last quarter of the year. The recruitment of these health personnel hasn't taken place. So we are trying to wonder, is this recruitment of the 3,000 health personnel going to take place? And what will happen to the 4,000? So I think our emphasis, looking at the current challenges that the health sector is facing, especially in relation to personnel, is to really expedite the recruitment of the 3,000, but also the additional 4,000 that are targeted to be recruited in 2024. So in conclusion, I will highlight some of the recommendations that CSPR would like to make to this House. So one, would like government to address the high levels of poverty by creating an upward trend or an upward increase to the allocation of social protection programs, but also the social sectors, education, health. We strongly recommend that government must make fiscal and policy commitments by providing social assistance programs and consider deepening linkages for non-contributory programs to contributory programs. Additionally, CSPR recommends that the Cash Plus initiative, the legal framework for the National Health Insurance, allows for the social cash transfer beneficiaries to access health insurance. However, we still feel this requires higher budgets for social protection interventions. CSPR also recommends that government should consider increasing the transfer value of social cash transfer from 200 per month to 336, at least to allow beneficiaries to get the food poverty line from the Zamstat poverty assessment report that was launched, I think, 2 weeks ago. The impacts of climate change on manufacturing, agriculture, infrastructure, water and sanitation will continue to shrink the GDP by 0.4, like my colleague had mentioned. The impacts of social protection and health from the effects of climate change, such as floods and drought, will continue to exacerbate poverty and increased vulnerability every year. So therefore, we recommend that government should include climate change consideration in planning and budgeting processes. But also, like I had mentioned earlier, would like to see the recruitment process of health workers to be expedited. I think I will end here unless my colleagues have other comments.
Okay, thank you so very much for the good presentation. We are now going to start asking you questions. Honorable members, if you've got questions, you can start asking questions. We are going to start with Honorable Maveta, followed by Honorable Chinkuli, then Honorable Msanji. You can switch off your mic.
Thank you very much, Chair. I wanted to find out from the studies the CSPR have conducted regarding to poverty alleviation or improvement in the standard of living for the vulnerable in our society. Is the problem really the income they get or the ability to multiply that fund? I want to give an example. Ever since the introduction of grants in the CDF, I went to a market in my constituency, educated about how they can borrow, how they can form a cooperative and be able to apply for the grant. Give them 5,000 for them to make up 10 cooperatives so that they can be able to earn 40,000 per cooperative. The total income could have gone to 400. When I went back last week to go and check how many cooperatives were made and how many have benefited, I was only told only 2 cooperatives were made, and only out of those 2 cooperatives, the 40,000 they got, they've only made 2,000 kwacha as the book balance. They have spent all the money. So ask them to say where was the other balance on the, because to make a cooperative is cost 500 kwacha. So where's the 4,000? They said there's immediately left to shed the money. We didn't know that it could help us. So when we went for meetings to look at this social cash transfer, I think we made stories where for every 400 kwacha one person was getting, they're using a 300 kwacha to buy a goat. And someone owns over 9 goats. Because of that policy he had decided, when I get 400, I'll use 100 kwacha and invest the 300 kwacha. So should we continue increasing the quantum of funds to these vulnerable people, or it's maybe to educate them to be able to invest and earn more in the future? I thank you.
Honorable Chinkuli.
Thank you so much. I would have, asked that question in a better way than he has put it. It's a challenge. I don't know. Is this enough? Yes, I think it's I've had a number of challenges where a number of NGOs, I think they have just joined the bandwagon where anything that happens to go my younger name, I think that is a household term, that anything, the point that even those of us who have gone into, who have sat in class, we have started thinking those lines without looking at what is it that can be done to ensure that these people are educated, and when the funds are put on their table, are able to be utilized. Like you say, it's all constituencies. The government has these funds, the grants. You go 2 days thereafter, they tell you, no, we shared the money. I know me had challenges, I had to pay rentals. No, me, my wife was now you look at the level of understanding. Then thereafter, we as those who are trying to manage, we start fighting. No, you increase funds. That is a comment. Now I'm looking at your recommendations. I would want you to justify this increase from 200 to 336. The other issue I would want you to attend to is the issue you made mention that impacts on climate change on manufacturing, agriculture. I just want you to give an example of the type of manufacturing you are trying to refer to here. I thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My questions, a number of short questions. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentations from the entire team. I've got a couple of small questions. One, in your poverty overview, you have attributed, I guess you are quoting the recent living conditions survey, which has attributed an increase in poverty from 54.4% to 60%. What do you attribute this increase? That's my first small question. You put a few things there, but I would like you to delve a little bit more, especially if you can look into the historical data for you to tell us how the trend is moving and what you attribute it to. And then I've noted that rural poverty did not increase much. It was at 78%, basically about 2% increase, but urban poverty increased quite much, from 23 to 31%. So let's see, what do you attribute the difference between high increase in in urban poverty and very little increase in rural poverty? And then you have talked about the ministerial statement on the budget to impact on poverty. Since you are a civil society group for poverty reduction, are you happy with these measures that attributed in the budget to impact on poverty? Thank you. I'll come back with a few.
Okay. I think you can answer those three, then others will ask after that.
I think I'll begin, and then my colleagues can come in where I have left out. So just to get some of the questions, like from the first question, I know that you had asked about education and whether the increases are necessary. Of course, I think awareness and education is very necessary. Especially, I think you also had the solution in your question, by the way, when you said that we should need to educate and then for them to learn how to invest and earn more. Because I think there's a saying about even if you give a fish to a farmer or a starving family, you need to teach somebody how to fish so that they can have that sustainability. So, of course, there needs to be, and it's very interesting that you also brought up CDF, because we'd have also loved to talk about that, but only restricted to a couple of things. Because even if you increase and continue increasing, how is it performing? What has the performance been like? So also need to take that into account, how are people assimilating it. Of course, it's not just a day when you can come and educate somebody and then expect them to make a change, but the education part needs to be that kind of education that is all-encompassing, where somebody is now able to have transformative knowledge or attitudes towards a certain type of thing. So I think, yes, that is necessary. And then also for, I think that has touched on two questions about the education. And then also I like the question you asked about the climate change. Yes, I think it has been mentioned a number of times that climate change has impacted. I mentioned already that in manufacturing, if we look at, let's just give an example of load shedding that is currently happening. We know that Zambia is quite reliant on hydropower. So then the waters now fall in the Kariba Dam, as we always hear year after year. So what is causing that? That is climate change, right? So then there's less production in the economy because now industry has got load shedding. Not every manufacturing company can buy those big gensets that you find in the mines or where, like, even the mines themselves, who are one of the top contributors to GDP, they're saying our operations have been impacted because of low water levels. So low water levels because they process using water. So their operations are impacted. And then on agriculture, I gave an example of the floods that we had incurred recently, this past farming season. We had floods and then we had a dry spell. So how are farmers really adapting? You know, even the minister's speech, we're always promoting maize, we're always promoting hybrid maize, so Civil Society for Poverty Reduction is also promoting organic maize, which we wanted also to mention at some point. So on agriculture, people are really impacted because Zambia is heavily reliant, our farmers are heavily reliant on maize. So then also that had an effect because not only were they reliant on that for food security, also for their livelihoods. So that had a very big impact on them. And then infrastructure. The minister in his speech mentioned, oh yes, we're going to build roads, more roads are coming. But then these roads are also susceptible to climate change. Say for instance, extreme temperatures crack the roads. heavy water or floods sweep away the roads. So are these infrastructure climate resilient? We don't even, Zambia is signatory to SDG or 15 on sustainable cities, but we do not put climate resilience or in the building codes for our roads or for our buildings. So these things are likely to be swept away. And then when they're swept away, we have to replace it with a new road, isn't it? And then also on water and sanitation. I think on water and sanitation, pretty much on water, whenever there's impacts of climate change, we know that there's mostly spread of diseases, typhoid, cholera would come up as a result because the water is now contaminated. People are not able to use that water. That's as a result of floods, by the way. So it's a lot that is really impacted. And then when you look at water and sanitation, it goes even onto health. When there are floods and the like, people have that contamination, children cannot go to school. What does it do for people who are trying to find a livelihood? So those are the impacts. And then we're saying that actually our GDP is shrinking. They're saying, well, we do not have enough. I think the National Symposium that CSPR had presented to on Monday, the government said, well, we do not have enough money. Where are we going to get money from? That was the minister, the honorable minister speaking. But then if your GDP is shrinking because of these impacts, aren't you supposed to focus more on finding out how to address that problem instead of quick solutions like giving school parks or providing food to people? Why not have more GDP when you address some of those challenges? So I'll let my colleague also answer the next question.
Thank you so much for your feedback and your questions. I would like to address the question on why the increment from 200 to 336. So particularly for social cash transfer, in the guidelines, when you look at it, we started, the very first cash transfer that was there was going for 25 kwacha, which was equivalent to the bag of milli meal at the time when it started. Of course, it has been increasing over the years. And then right now, currently, we're grappling with milli meal prices for about 300 kwacha, 270, about 270 to 300 kwacha. So even just in addition to his question to the education and how these people are not coming alive to other options, the social cash transfer is there for food. So we have come up with the 336 because in the poverty assessment, the least poverty line for food, the food poverty line is at 336. So if we're saying that that's the benchmark or that's the datum line that we should be looking at, then the social cash transfer should increase to at least the poverty line, unless we change our guidelines for social cash transfer to say that we want people to be more innovative, because as it is currently, when you receive your 200 kwacha, or for persons living with disability, they receive their 600 kwachas, they are at liberty to do whatever they want with that money. So if I'm faced with a sickness in my home, if I'm faced with whatever challenge in my home, my first thought is not to buy a goat. My first thought is, what is the next meal that I'm going to feed my children? And 200 kwacha is not enough money to, if we are going to say that they're using that for milli meal. Of course, there are other dynamics that people in the rural areas do not buy milli meal and the like, but that's a standard that the government has set, and that's what's in our guidelines. And going forward, we also need to make sure that our legislation is speaking to what we actually want from the ground. And this is why I'm going back to social cash transfer being a food cash transfer. So if we are looking at it from that angle, that's why we are proposing at least the 336, because that's what's been provided for in the poverty assessment. I would also like to say that it's been a bitter sweet feeling, or a bitter feeling, when we say Boma Yanganilepo. I would like to say social protection is a human right, and humans are entitled to many rights: a right to life, right to food, right to shelter, and all those things. So we are right when we say Boma should look upon people that are poor, because I mean, we are in Zambia. Where else will we go? Particularly for people that are living in the most vulnerable situations or the most hectic conditions. So yes, we still want Boma to look upon vulnerable households, especially that our poverty levels have gone up. I would also like to touch on Honorable Joseph Monsanja's question to what we are attributing the increase to poverty to. Recently, in 2022, our census came out. Our population has grown in number, so of course we know that our rural populations were higher, and of course that's where the magnitude of our poverty is. So if our birth rates are going higher and people keep getting born in these poor families, they'll be born, it becomes a vicious cycle, and then the more people in that family, the more poverty keeps to escalate. So of course we can't run away from the fact that our poverty has increased, our population has increased, and so has poverty increased. In relation to the urban and rural divide, and just seeing how our urban poverty has also been increasing, we can't run away from the high cost of living and the inland migration, because it is assumed that people in the urban areas are doing better. So when people from the rural areas migrate to the urban areas and find that things are difficult here, of course poverty will become higher in the urban setting. So I think that's what we would attribute our poverty levels in the urban areas to. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much for those responses. My question is, you as civil society, you are in the...
Maybe you can use, what about this one? I'm saying maybe you can use.
Thank you. My question is, you as civil society, I think I just want to look at, civil societies in general. How often do you sit to look at, because you're in governance, you are a third tier, if I'm not mistaken. How often do you sit and look at such challenges that are facing people that you are trying to fight for? Do you sit as civil society, do you have an organization so that as you present matters here, you are speaking with one voice? Because what is happening now is, you are confusing us. The other one will propagate 200. The other will tell you minimum wage. The other will tell you this. So how do you expect us as parliamentarians to listen to you and push that agenda that you want us to push? I submit.
Honorable Marita, you can ask your question.
Okay, thank you, Chair. On the food security pack, which was introduced basically to the vulnerable but viable farmers. I think over years, ever since this program was introduced in the late 2000s, we've never been able to tap the viability of these people. They've continued being vulnerable, but viable. So now I think this government, the European government, through the increased CDF, it has given us an opportunity as members of parliament to go and support these people more. What am I talking about? Through the procurement of the earth-moving equipment. I can give an example of Mufira. We spent over 18.5 million in 1 year to put up a combo of earth-moving equipment we're using to build roads, open up, mechanize their production. Obviously, that we expect to see these people, some of them becoming viable. So I wanted to find out from you, as we are trying to tackle poverty, have we really looked at the support we need to uplift the people we are supporting beyond the inputs we give them? Because over the last 20 years, all the farmers have been receiving just inputs, cheap fertilizer, cheap seed, and they want them to become viable one day. But this government is going deeper by grading the roads, their production, their farmland, mechanizing the production by procurement of tractors. I think Honorable Musanje is one of the MPs who got a tractor, which is busy now cultivating for the people in the constituents, mechanizing the production. So, as a civil society, when analyzing poverty support, do you go deeper than the support which we've been giving for the past 20 years? Because if in the last 20 years, the farmers were being supported, but they remained vulnerable, how come we didn't go deeper to change their lifestyle? I thank you.
I think I'll sorry, my apologies.
I wanted to ask Honorable Musanje and Honorable Chivombwe to ask their questions, then you can answer at the same time.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the other response, but you didn't finish with mine because I quoted from your overview where you have said the Minister of Finance announced the interventions that government would boost economic growth and reduce poverty. So I asked the question, are you happy with these measures, and you didn't answer that question. You are for poverty reduction. You need to tell us whether you are happy with the measures, whether they are going to reduce poverty or not. And if yes, then we go forward. If not, how else? That is one of the questions which you need to tell us. And that is related to where you have also written about effectiveness of policies. You are supposed to interrogate these policies and tell us how effective they are in terms of reducing poverty. And maybe could you also give us, you didn't give us, you quoted the economic recession, but there is no dates as to what is the period, because it should be in context of a certain period. And then you have also quoted the 336 poverty datum line. Again, I haven't seen any evidence of the source. What could be the source? So I think we can deal with those matters for now before we come back. Thank you.
Okay. Can I ask the last one? Let it be the last one, then after answering you are going to ask.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you so much, Chair. You've indicated that the poverty levels in rural areas, that's where I come from, have actually gone up. So I wanted to find out from you, do you think, or do you see poverty levels in rural areas reduce in 2024? If not, and beyond? And what other measures do you think government can put in place apart from, the food security pack, FISIB, grants and the like? What other measures can government put in place to reduce poverty levels in our rural areas? Thank you.
I think you can answer those questions.
Okay, so I'll start with the last honorable's question, and I'll couple it with yours in regards to FSP, because I think they're speaking to the same thing. Like I was saying, social protection is a key. I think that's been mentioned even in our submission, that in terms of reducing poverty, we need to start changing the way we look at social protection as not just a consumption tool, but also a forward thinking or an investment in the future. So social protection is broad, and like my colleague has said, in terms of reducing poverty, it's very dynamic. We can't just speak to social protection. Social protection also speaks to education, it also speaks to health, it speaks to a lot of other issues, and we would have loved to have that an in-depth look at the whole social sector in this submission. But in regards to FSP and us seeing poverty, if poverty reduce from 2024 and beyond, we need a very strong legislative framework when it comes to social protection, as particularly FSP, and not just for FSP, we need to have graduations. I know FISP also has a graduation pathways. People should graduate after 3 years, but we can see that the same people from when it's begun are the same people that are there even now. So our legislative framework, like we mentioned earlier, does not speak to each other. So you would find that sometimes they are clashing, and I remember a long time ago there was a term that was called double dipping. We have moved from double dipping, now we are calling it cash plus. And those are some of the initiatives that we need to look at. Why aren't people graduating? Why are people still having this poverty? Still living in poverty. When we speak to FSP or FISP or these other social protection programs that we are speaking to, when the farmer has grown their produce and their produce rather, where are they selling them to? Is the market friendly? Are they able to raise the income for them to move away from the poverty? Those are some of the questions that we need to be answering ourselves. So it goes beyond just us putting in the money, but the output as well. So we have to, it's a supply and demand cause and effect type of thing that we need to look at. So when we pump in this money, what is the output that they are gaining from it? Is it just that we are attending food security as a country, but when it goes down to the farmer, what is the gain that they are getting from it? And those are some of the measures that we need to start looking at. An overhaul of the social protection sector needs to happen. Currently, we don't have a law when it comes to social protection, and I'm appealing to this House to go back and push for a social protection law because we need it. When we couple maybe FISP and social cash transfer, right now in our recommendation we said all the social cash transfer beneficiaries should be added onto NEMA, because then they will have access to health. You see, so when we are coupling these, and this is why I'm saying it's gone from double dipping to cash plus, because we realize that poverty is multidimensional, like I earlier mentioned. So you can't just focus on one area and leave out the other. We can't say, no, we're investing in this, but someone is sick. We need a healthy labor force as well to work, to till the land, and to also make sure that everything is going well. So we need to have an overhaul of the whole social protection sector. That's when we'll be able to see intended results. In terms of maybe I should still add on to how we see that the measures, the current budget is answering from 2024 and beyond. Like I'm saying, the overhaul of our policies should be done, yes, but we also need to start seeing changes in the way people are thinking. Like I mentioned, poverty is multidimensional, and we need to see start people seeing people to get more involved in entrepreneurship. Yes, CDF is there, and maybe the government. We thank you that you have increased the budget allocation. We thank you to the Ministry of Finance that they have increased allocation to CDF. But we need to go back. Why are people sharing out? This is not the first time we're hearing the stories of, oh, we received 40,000 kwacha, but we decided to share it off because we didn't want problems. Yes, and some of the projects that we work on are there to put people into cooperatives and encourage them to say, you know what, there's money available for women, go ahead and get them. But the uptake and the following through the process, do they know financial literacy? Do they know how to manage the finances after they get them? All those things need to be followed through. So it's not just a matter of input, it's also a matter of checking how the demand and the supply is also going. I thank you.
Okay. I think I'll start with the question you asked about CSOs collaborating. Yes, we do collaborate. Actually, CSPR is the co-chair for the Human and Social Development Cluster Group. And even when we were meeting our colleagues, JCTR, outside, we said, hey, you're also here. We said, oh, we also received a letter. But then, unfortunately, we had a very short time to prepare for this. So usually we do have a collision and we do meet and discuss and come with one point. But the time given to us was pretty limited for us to have that kind of deliberation, because, we love to talk so much here. So it would take about a week for us to deliberate. And then also, just to also contribute to what my colleague has already mentioned concerning the inputs, CSPR is actually advocating for agroecology, moving away from the inputs. If you look at the inputs, what it categorizes of, it's basically hybrid maize, fertilizer. Those are the main inputs on social security packs, including the FISP. And I also touched this one because we produce policy briefs. We speak to policies and we submit them to the committees. Last time we submitted to the Committee on Agriculture concerning agroecology and FISP. Because if we're looking at what my colleague said about FISP, it has been running for over 20 years. But have we seen a change? Has there been a shift? Has there been a shift where you can say for sure this program has worked? So it was also quite disappointing to learn from the government. They had allocated some amount towards FISP, though it has reduced. But then we are looking more to the rolling out of the CASP, because this has been on the table for quite some time. And they said it would be rolled out this year in 2023, but we are still waiting for that rolling out. And so looking at those type of inputs and also what has been given, the government really pushes the maize agenda. We're also looking at diversity. Recently, not recently, the former FRA marketing prices concentrated more of maize, and then there's that increment from 180 to 280. How about the soya beans farmers? And then when we inquired about this, the government said, no, the farmers actually supply to the Chinese, but that is only for commercial farmers. So our smallholder farmers are really left out, who are diversifying to other things. And so these inputs, especially the maize, I already talked about agriculture and how climate change has an impact. So of course it will have an impact on what the farmers are already doing. So they're not able to realize or become viable farmers at the end of the day, because our inputs as well as our programs are not working. So then, the measures apart from FISIP and the like, yes, we are still promoting agroecology. So in this space, we'd like to promote agroecology because time and time it has proven much better than conventional farming. And this hybrid maize, these hybrid fertilizers and the like, they only destroy the land. They're not sustainable. It has proven that even after 3 years of putting the same maize, the same fertilizer, it makes the land derelict. So of course we're promoting to a much more, you'll be surprised that in a farmer's field it is yellow, but in the grass there it is green, which is next to the farmer's field. But why is nature like this and why is the farmer's field yellow? So we need really to look at that, so speaking to a committee here, so to take that into consideration. So I'll give my colleague to also finish the last point.
Okay, I'm responding to the question relating to if CSPR is happy with pronouncements made by the Minister of Finance during his budget speech to Parliament. So well, pronouncements, we want to increase production, we want to see enhanced private sector investment, productivity, good pronouncements, but for us as CSPR, our concern is the actual implementation of some of these pronouncements. What measures are we putting in place? So for us, we will be looking forward or we'll be looking out to see the actual implementation of this, aside from it just being written black and white through a speech. I think that's...
Okay, thank you so very much.
Yes. It starts from planning, but the actualization is what we'll be looking out for.
We are going to follow in this. We start with you, Honorable Chinkuli, Dr. Katakwedeni Maveta. Who else? Shala.
May I use your beautiful mic? Thank you so much for your response to my concerns. Now, we are here to represent the people, so as you. Now, what message do we take to the government as to how much do we increase this, social cash transfer? Because so far, this is not the first sitting. I think some time back, a number of yourselves have been giving us, what they feel should be the minimum, amount that should be given. So far, adding yours, which is 336, others talking about, minimum wage, others are talking about 700 kwacha, others. So what figure? Because should we propagate for 336? The other, sister organ who complained. So we just want you to help us as to how much should we, advance to the government and say this is what it is, this is what people want, this is what CSOs have proposed, and we need to justify. We won't just say no, 200. Then they ask, can you justify? So would want you to help us so that we can advance that, as soon as possible. I submit.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, civil society, for your presentation. For me, it's just like we are going around the circles. You have seen that, yes, we've been trying to increase social cash transfer, we have been trying to increase CDF, but from your data presentation, the poverty levels, be it in urban, rural, it is escalating. And I look at the period, and what is the relevance of your existence? Where have we gone wrong as a country? On one hand, we are so rich in natural resources. On one hand, we are so poor, we can't finance the health sector, the social sector, and so on. Can you be categorical? Where have we gone wrong? Just like your existence, what is the relevance of your existence if, with all these efforts, poverty level keeps going high? So, where have we gone wrong? Thank you. I think I didn't get you clearly on the first question I asked on do we need to invest heavily in the benefits to the vulnerable people, or maybe need to invest heavily in their decision, ability to make the correct decision? Then the second question I have is, as a civil society, obviously what has kept this rural community extremely poor has been the suppressed prices of commodities, like you said. Maize price has been very low for a long period of time. But now we have a government which has increased the maize price so that the farmers who have been farming continue being vulnerable, couldn't tap their availability. You can start now growing their availability by giving them value for what they produce. But obviously that has also pushed the minimum prices high, affecting that urban poor person who can't afford the price of minimum. So as a civil society, how much do you take to come in between and interpret and explain to the poor people in the urban area to say, the reason you are paying high for this price of maize is because there's another poor person who's producing the same maize who's now benefiting because of high prices of maize. So maybe if you also want to increase your level of, your income levels, go into the production of maize, because that's where the money is now. Thank you.
Okay. Honorable.
I want to find out, in this year's budget, to be specific, this ministry.
Put your mic properly, we can't hear you.
I'm saying, I want to find out on this ministry that we are talking about, on social protection. Is it that, because when you look at the programs that this ministry have, they have more than one for social protection. Now, we are not seeing much needed results. The money that has been allocated to this ministry in this year's budget, it has to be distributed to all these programs. But when you look at the programs, they're talking of social protection. Could it be that if we had to reduce some of the programs, probably, and then the money is relocated to the few programs, in my view, it could have an effect. Could it be that the money that is being allocated because of so many programs, we don't get the intended results? What's your comment?
The last question, Honorable Musanje.
Yeah, thank you so much. They are the last ones. Of course, you didn't answer the economic recession timeline and the evidence for the 336. And I'll come to the health one. I think we have seen good progress in terms of the budget itself, in terms of financing, where we have reduced the external borrowing. So that is very good. I think you should be commending or commending ourselves as a country, because we are reducing external borrowing. Now, you have focused on the 15%, which is in the Abuja Protocol and the like. In line with your talk on the interrogating the policies, wouldn't you be focusing on what is stopping us from spending or actualizing the health budget? Because when you review the health budget, what you find is underspent year in, year out, as opposed to meeting the Abuja Protocol, because we must first utilize what we have. If the money is not a problem, in my view, the money is always allocated, adequate money for different things. I think for drugs, last year we had almost 3 billion, this year 4 billion kwacha for drugs and the like. Now the issue is about expense. That's where we have a problem, the burn rate. That's where we have a problem. And to me, you should focus yourselves on interrogating how we can effectively utilize the resources that are available, as opposed to simply focusing on, say, let's reach 15%. If we reach 15% and we don't spend the 15%, are we making progress? No, we're not making any progress. So can we rewind and make ourselves more effective in analyzing these matters, and maybe you can comment on that. Thank you.
Okay, you can now answer those questions. Then after that, I would like PBO to comment something.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I'll start with the last couple of questions. Some of them will be answered by my colleague, of course. So for the session, what we're talking about is basically the trends that have been in the GDP. So we looked at 2021, 2022, 2023, and the quotas that were within those years. And when we saw the kind of fluctuations or how the GDP had increased and reduced and the like, that's why we got that this year, from quarter 4 of last year, where it was 4.6, it moved down to 4.4, and it has only picked by 0.6%, by 0.6 from quarter 1 to quarter 2. So that's how we saw that trend was kind of low in this year as compared to the other years, 2021 and 2022. So on that one, that is where we have seen it. And I'm happy that you brought the issue of underspending, because it also answers the question of what has gone wrong. Because when you look at underspend, what is really the issue in the ministry? Is it the capacity? Is it the late disbursement of funds? Because even at the NDCC meeting that CSPR also chair, when we are receiving these presentations from the different ministries, the ministry themselves have actually said that not all ministries even have an M&E department. So looking at monitoring and evaluation, you have to assess what you have spent or how the program has spent and what the impact has been. We're looking at the outcome indicators and the like. But then, what is that capacity? Is it the capacity that the ministry is lacking? So I think we've identified those kind of points, including the delayed disbursement of funds, because even if we do have, I think it was noted at some point that when there's any disbursement of funds, then programs actually run according to plan. But then late disbursements also have contributed to that. So we have noted those points as well. So I think, I've answered for some of those. I remember I answered the question that you had asked concerning education measures to ensure people educated when I gave example of teach a fisherman how to fish and the like. So we are saying yes, both. Of course, you can increase something, but like you have mentioned, it is necessary to ensure that performance of that particular increment, it's actually performing, it's actually reaching the targeted group. Because underspend and then you take the money back, then there's really a big problem. Why ministries underspending? That means you're not reaching your particular targets and you're not able to make that difference. So this also, when we're looking at this, should also be based on the needs assessment that I think the ministries may have carried out. What do people on the ground, what is really the reality on the ground, the context in the ground, and specific context for specific areas, so they can be able to address adequately. That's why this monitoring and evaluation is very necessary. And if institutions do not have, or departments don't have this particular department, it's very worrying. Even when you look at the performance of budgets, we really like to see, like from the 2023 budget, what has come out from the monitoring and evaluation, how has this affected program implementation and the like. I'll give my colleague to respond to the other.
Where have we gone wrong, or what message are we taking to government? Thank you so much, Honorable, for these two questions. So I have with me here I'm sure this is very common here, but it's a highlight for the 2022 poverty assessment, and this is the evidence that we have for the 336. Like I said, for social cash transfer particularly, it was speaking to the minimum prices at the time, and that's what has remained in our guidelines. So up until we change those guidelines, then we can speak to that. Of course, also touching to where have we gone on, we can't speak to situations in silos. We have a huge debt burden that we have been trying to grapple with, debt restructuring and all those things that we have mentioned in our submission. So we can also look at the trends in the next 10, 15 years and how that is going to work. How possible is it to increase our domestic resource mobilization to invest in these social sectors? So for at CSPR, where we are standing with the 336 is because the poverty line here speaks to 336 at the very least. That's why we said we increase from 200 kwacha to at least get to that level. This is the very basic level of food, of the food poverty line, and that's why it's 336, and that's why we are coming with that recommendation. Also, given that we still have a lot of things in our sector, in our economy going on, we still need to invest in infrastructure. We still need to invest in other key sectors as well to eradicate poverty. So for us, why we ended up with the 336 is because we were given data from Zamstats, which we think are credible. We've been waiting for these statistics from 2015. So this is where we land. We would like a lot more increase given the cost of living and whatnot, but based off of what we have currently, we are proposing the 336, which has been given. Where have we gone wrong? There are so many things that we can speak to what we haven't done. Firstly, sometimes CSOs feel like this is just for formality. We are not taken seriously. What happens when we present our budget analysis? Where does this go? Is it, are we taken, we can't follow through what's happening. So it's very hard also to determine how impactful we've been, because we can't follow through to say, okay, this was taken up. Even quantifying to say, oh, the government put that in place. We can't come and claim to say that's a recommendation that's been given by civil society. So we're speaking to M&E, we also need to strengthen that. How is government taking on these things? Are they for formality? Is it something that just should be done to tick that they have done it? Or how is the uptake of these submissions that we are making here? So in terms of where we have gone wrong, there's so many loopholes in the system that we need to look at. Like I'm saying, please go and look at the legislation when it comes to social protection, how they interrelate, and all those things. There's so much potential in the social protection sector, and we need to look at how the legal framework is operating, because we would have FISP is happening in this side, and social cash transfer is happening alone, and the education policy is just there lingering somewhere. There is now social insurance with NIMA, which is also a social protection measure. There is NAPSA, and all these things speak to one another. So we shouldn't just look at social protection as being key for the vulnerable, which it is, but it's also speaking to us at this level. So we also need to look at how our policy framework is being framed. And my colleague also spoke to enforcement. Yes, Zambia has the most brilliant laws. I think statistics show, and even research has shown, that Zambia has some of the most brilliant policies in sub-Saharan Africa. And most of our neighboring countries come to look at these laws and policies from us, and we are leading with that. But the enforcement, how sure are we that this is going down to those intended? Of course, we had problems of timely disbursements of even social cash transfer itself, but now, of course, that has changed over the years, and we would like to commend government for doing that. Timely disbursements also means that implementation is taking place as quickly as it should. So the uptake of just the interaction between civil society and government should also be enhanced, because it's hard to quantify or to qualify our position there as well. I think we are very we are an important key stakeholder when it comes to research and comes to advising, but we can't really quantify, or we can't qualify certain policies. We can't attribute them to ourselves because it's hard to follow through there. So some of those loopholes need to be curbed. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so very much. Well,
Okay. Okay. Noted, sir. Thank you. In terms of coverage,
cost-benefit analysis, you want to empower the farmer, but that results in the high price of mini meal, which affects the other vulnerable person. As CSO, how much intervention are you putting in to ensure that we start changing the mindset? We start shifting the minds of both beneficiaries, because they're looking at two poor people. Thank you.
okay, you can answer those questions.
Okay, in terms of, I think what you were asking, if I got you correctly, is the distinction between increasing in coverage and increasing in transfer value. That has always been a debate to, should we increase in coverage? Is it better that someone gets 100 kwacha at least, or we increase the transfer value and shorten the coverage to say 10 people will get 500 kwacha as opposed to 100 people getting 10 kwachas? This is where it's an ongoing debate, and it's something that it's a double-edged sword, because currently, as we are seeing, that government, even in the budget speech, had noted that they will be increasing in coverage. They have increased in coverage, and some documents say they'll be increasing up to 1.3 million people on the social cash transfer currently for the year 2023, which is a good thing because someone has a piece of the cake. But in terms of effectiveness, like I said, the beneficiary is at liberty to do whatever they want. If they got the money today, they would not be arrested for drinking the money. They would not be arrested for throwing it away. They would not be arrested for they won't bring them to book for that. They are at liberty to do whatever they want to do with their money, which goes back to our legislation. What do we want to see out of these people? Is it that they should be investing? Are we coming up with another program? What is it that we want to see at the end? How should they? Of course, they also have the liberty to do that. That's a human right to make their own decisions. But legislation becomes key when in terms of what we want to see at the end of the government dispersing funds. So it's an ongoing debate, and this is why we are also standing on the cash plus benefit. So how this works is you link other social protection programs together. So even if you haven't increased the social cash transfer, but when legislation is right, you can link social cash transfer benefits to NEMA. That will also eliminate the possibility of going to the hospital, or you link them to another program that will also eliminate other needs that they have, and that also allows for coverage. So it still can happen twofold. You increase in coverage and you increase in transfer value, because you'll be increasing in coverage and giving them 200 kwacha, but they're not able to afford certain other key amenities. So we should find a way to increase both, because currently, given the poverty statistics, social cash transfer alone is only reaching 12% of the 11 billion people that, how many million or billion people that are currently in Zambia, and that's a drop in the ocean. That's a drop. 12% of the poor population. That's a drop in the ocean. So we really need to increase in coverage and in transfer value.
Okay.
Just respond to his question. It's always the farmer versus the consumer, but that's not how it's supposed to be. Because what is the cause of the farmer, or why giving the farmer high prices for the maize? It's because of the flood that recently happened, the shortage of, or maybe the climate impacts that occurred. The farmers had to be sustained by government, therefore they gave them a higher price of maize, isn't it? So how do I address that root cause? Because increasing the minimum prices, that's a quick fix. We're quickly fixing that, because even if we do say, okay, everybody should have a farm at their backyard, how big are the spaces, even for people with poverty here in Lusaka? How big are the spaces for everybody to plant their own maize? It's not possible. So there's supposed to be a sustainable solution to ensure that farmers actually produce that productivity and the crop is yielding properly, and that's why we're also saying that if we're given also a chance to also expand and look at things like the FISIP and agriculture, we'd also say extension farmers and the like, and continue promoting agroecology. So it's the root cause we're supposed to look at, and not always having the farmer versus consumer conversation.
Okay. Thank you.
Might as per submission, we'll be happy to come back.
Thank you so very much. I think okay, thank you so very much. Let PBO comment on the presentation which has
Thank you, Chairperson. I just wanted to say this, that JCTR, Caritas, and CSPR have been very good friends to Parliament in terms of providing information. They've provided information, especially to the expanded budget committee, and obviously to sector committees, but on policy issues, not on the budget. But on the expanded, it has to be with the budget. And so I just wanted to remind them that we're now looking at the budget in sectors, in committees. And I note from your presentation that you could still be thinking about the expanded, but this committee has a portfolio. It oversees two ministries, Ministry of Community Development and Ministry of Health. So I was just looking at your presentation, look at the social protection. Yes, there are aspects of pensions, for instance. If you had focused on the ministry, you would have maybe eliminated that, because they fall under the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. But the idea is this, that we want these ministries to be accountable to this committee. in terms of the resources that are being given, what are they doing with these resources? And this country has come up with a national plan. That's the context in which we are holding them accountable. Yes, you are doing all these things, but are you doing them with what this government intends to achieve in the next 5 years? So these ministries that fall under this committee, they contribute to the cluster on human and social development. We would want you to really see and help us understand how these ministries are contributing to those pillars. We want our reports to be different from the expanded, so that people can see the need for us to provide oversight on these ministries. I just thought I should bring that up. Thank you very much.
Okay. No, thank you so very much. That has been understood. It's a very nice comment. At this juncture, I think the meeting is now finished. It has been adjourned. Before I adjourn the meeting, remember, before you started your presentation, I conferred an immunity on you. So this time, I'm going to remove the immunity so that when you go out there, in case of anything, you'll be on your own. Will not defend you. Beautiful ladies, thank you. Honorable member, you are out of order. Thank you very much. Go well.